Report from Santa Fe is made possible in part by grants from the members of the National Education Association of New Mexico, an organization of professionals who believe that investing in public education is an investment in our state's economic future, and by a grant from the Healy Foundation, Taos, New Mexico.
Hello, I'm Lorene Mills, and welcome to Report from Santa Fe. We have women of an international caliber here. I am delighted to welcome first Tarja Hallinan, the former president of Finland, president from 2000 to 2012. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, I enjoy this is my first time in Santa Fe.
Oh.
I enjoy food.
And returning for her second visit to Santa Fe is Halla Thomasdottir, a change catalyst, a candidate for president of Iceland in the 2016, the runner-up in the 2016 election. Thank you so much for coming here. You also were just at an Indian pueblo, right, visiting?
Yes, I went to Santa Clara Pueblo and learned from the wise elders there.
Yes, the fine tradition of matriarchies. But
yes.
Finland is celebrating its 100 years of independence.
Yes, the whole year.
Oh, good. That's good. There's so many things about contemporary events I'd love to talk with you about. You were neighbors with Russia for a long time.
They have been always our neighbors. Sometimes they have had a different name. They were originally Russians, then they were Soviet Union. Now they are Russians again. But neighbors, yes. Like Sweden.
And so you've worked with Putin for years.
I knew him quite well, yes, because we were at the same time presidents, and he was also a certain time the prime minister. But anyway, yeah, it was the part of my work.
And he's very much on the world stage now, especially in terms of our elections. Do you have a comment about his...
I will only say that the only thing which could be different between Finland and USA is that for us it's very natural that we have contacts and relations with Russians. They are our neighbors, like also Swedes and Estonians. But of course the reaction would be exactly the same if we would be doubting that somebody has involved in our elections. We will have the next presidential elections next year, early next year, and so I just make a warning to everybody, not only to Russians, everybody who tries to be involved in our elections will get the same reaction.
Well, good for you. That's a good warning for anyone who wants to mess with anybody's elections. Now, Halla, you had said that running for president was such a transformative experience for you. You went from 1% at the beginning to 34% to being the runner-up.
I went to almost a third of the votes, about 28%. Yes, I was an unexpected candidate. I didn't come from politics. I guess I was an outsider. I came from business and the investment space. But I think maybe there is demand for that also. I mean, there is some apathy towards politicians today. And wherever we are politically, I think people are looking for new ideas, more innovation and creativity in politics. And last but not least, that we have leadership that works on the back of good values and principles. And I just have to say, since you mentioned Santa Clara Pueblo, that listening to the wise old ladies there telling us about their culture and the core values felt almost like I was listening about the story of the women who came before me, my own family and women in Iceland, in terms of they emphasize hard work, caring, sharing, respect, and family. And I believe we could all do with more of those values today.
Well, you were the first woman president of Finland, and Iceland had the first democratically elected female head of state in the world. You were, it started with a strike in 1975, right? Just tell us a short version of that story, because it's very interesting.
Well, the short version is that women in Iceland decided to take the day off. That's what they called it, but now it's generally referred to as the women's strike. Whether they held professional jobs or were working at home, they did no work that day, and they brought the country to its knees, because nothing works when women are not at work. And this started a movement, in my view, that has gone beyond Iceland, but is probably one of the main reasons why we had the courage and the wisdom and the foresight to elect a great female president 5 years after this initial strike. And women have paved the way to make Iceland a better country ever since.
That campaign was shocking in its misogyny. So tell us what, I can't pronounce her name.
Vigdis.
Vigdis Finnbogadóttir.
Yes. But they had accused her because she had been fighting breast cancer.
Yeah,
Of being a woman candidate, but only half a woman because she'd had one breast removed due to cancer. And she said...
Well, this is where humor comes in, and I know President Hallinan is amazing when it comes to humor, actually also wit, I guess is a better word, because he responded when people were referring to her not being even a full woman. It was hard enough to be a woman, but with one breast removed, they called her half a woman, and she said, well, I intended on leading this country, not breastfeeding it.
Yeah, that's...
That's very good. That's very, very, very good, yes. That's just...
Let's talk about the Finland and Iceland and the Nordic values. You always get like in the top 10 of the happiness scales, the gross national happiness.
Yeah, but the happiness. In the matter of fact, I thought always earlier that the Finns don't like that if somebody says that you are in top 10 at the happiness, because the Finns think always that we are a little bit pessimistic, we don't speak so much, but we want to be in all style. But I think that all Nordic countries, we have made a lot to work in such a way that such kind of things, circumstances, what normally make people unhappy, we cannot avoid them at all, but we can make them as short as possible and help people to come back in normal circumstances so that they don't need to be unhappy. So I think that this is the secret of the welfare state, that sickness, unemployment, or when you are getting old and you need help, and helping the families with children need also help, that they can fully enjoy the situation. And I think this is the fact. And I call very often that Nordic countries are like Nordic sisters, not brothers, but sisters. 5 Nordic sisters. They have exactly the same very deep family values concerning the caring society and nature, environmental relationship and all that. But then, of course, like sisters happen to be that when they have the different lives, they might become a little bit different. And so Iceland is not Finland, and Finland is not Iceland, but we have the same family values in the society.
One of your values also that you're famous for is education. Thank you so much. You believe in lifelong education.
Yes.
And it's free. And you have incredible healthcare systems. It's just, we have a lot to learn from you. And one of the ways we're learning it, you have come here as guests of WISC, which is can you describe it? It's
WISC is Women's International Studies Center, and they put on a lot of events in Santa Fe to discuss issues related to women's leadership and role in society. And we're in particular going to talk about leadership and the importance of values or principles when it comes to leadership.
Of course, you can guess that among the founders are, of course, the Finns. The Finns who have become Americans. So this is also something what I hope so that the Finnish originated immigrants have strengthened in U.S. Society, that the women have an important role. We need them.
What I love about WISC, and I want to draw attention to them because they're a leading nonprofit in Santa Fe, but they are dedicated to inspiring and enabling women around the world to reach their full potential. I want to talk about Nordic Women, since you both are one. I had just read this wonderful archaeological fact that they excavated the most famous Nordic tomb of a warrior, and the warrior had the spears and the shields and decapitated horses to ride in the afterlife, and this was clearly the most powerful warrior they'd ever found, and they did the DNA on the bones, and it was a woman warrior. Talk about women warriors in Finland and Iceland and the whole Nordic legends.
Yeah, I think so, that the traditional role of the woman is very equal to the man, but I think that she has been a great leader. But the mostly women I became independent on and very strong because we lived in the society where both the man and the woman have to work very hard in order to survive from the hard natural circumstances. And then, of course, the Vikings and the other, they went hunting, they were the wars against each other and all such kind of things. And then who could keep then the society while it's the conflict? The same like today, they are the women. Women are keeping the society going on. And I think that even I was very, very, how could I say, happy in a way that that she was a woman. But then I thought that, yes, women have done everything. But I'm especially I want to underline those values of the women also in our societies, to see the normal life between the wars and without the wars. But yes, that was a nice surprise.
Yes, yes.
Well, I'm incredibly grateful to have built or had the opportunities I've had because of the women who came before me. And for me, it goes all the way back to the Viking women. So when I founded my first women empowerment initiative and later an investment firm, I named it by one of the Viking women, Ouder, which is basically means wealth and happiness and also clear space. And there was a Viking woman called Ouder, the deep-minded. And the deep-mindedness referred to the fact that she was not just a strong woman who conquered land and broke a lot of barriers not known to women at the time, or known to women at the time. She was smart. She was the reflective sort of thinker, deep thinker. And I think we need more of that today. We've sort of lived through decades of aggression and warriors. So I'm glad women will fight, but I think today we need to go back to some of these native core values, the core values I was raised with, and the human values that the Nordic countries embrace. And so there is a real role for more female leaders today, and more leaders that embrace such values in general, be they male
even if
or
they are
females.
men and women, yes.
Exactly.
I think we were speaking about this today, that in the matter of fact, we think that the societies in a way have become more feminine in such a way that with the sustainable development, we are all encouraged to see little longer periods for the future, and seeing how we are all the one part of, we are the part of the same entity. In such a way, I think that it's not only that we can do the same like men, but also that the whole society should respect and value more this kind of caring and other issues.
Well, since you, and by the way, we're speaking today with Tarja Hallinan, former president of Finland, and Hala Tomasdottir, candidate for president of Iceland, and you just bring so much wisdom from the Nordic culture. I was started to say that since you've been president, you're working a lot with the United Nations on sustainability, on human rights, on the World Health Organization. Wow. Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing.
Oh, I'm doing it still. Let's go
that's
together.
That's what I mean.
Yes,
let's go together. And when I last spoke with you, Hala, you had done this wonderful work about bringing feminine values to high finance, because Iceland survived the 2008 crisis better than most. And you talked about the values of we instead of me, and the more female inclusion. And how can we have a little more of that in my country, in America?
Well, I like to look at what's going on in America now as a bit of a wake-up period in this culture, and I think maybe the American culture went a little bit far with me, or I before the we for a while, for decades perhaps, and now maybe we see the ultimate expression of that in leadership. And I just don't believe that's sustainable. And I don't think, so I believe in inclusive cultures, and I think Nordic countries can provide a good example of that. Not because it's about women or the feminine alone, but because in inclusive cultures, everyone gets to be the best version of themselves. And the otherness that we have practiced too long in the American culture and in other Western cultures is not going to bring out the best in anyone. So we need to start to build cultures where everybody can flourish. And I don't think you have to look far, because I think at the core of the culture, certainly in this great state, you have that in the indigenous cultures, in the native cultures. So just go back to find where you were and where you came from, and then you will get back on track. And everybody needs to take responsibility for that. That is not the role of one leader in the White House or one leader in the state capital of New Mexico. Everyone needs to look, what am I doing? Because I believe every single one of us is a leader with a role to bring about a better world.
I fully agree with what Hala said, and I have been learned these values in my own family when I was a child. That my mother and my father said very often that don't always think what you. They said that we said instead of me, you said we. And so I have learned it a long time ago. But I think that I would underline it also to you that we means also you yourself.
Yeah.
And that's good to remember. It means me and the others plus.
But there's that element of public service. I was watching your interview at the Kennedy International School of International Relations, and you mentioned that you had wanted to be an artist, you know, in your youth, and that now you have this magnificent career of public service. So is there room for that little artist sprout that was trying to grow?
It's still my hobby. I studied the history of art 1 year before I started my studies becoming a lawyer, and my mother and my father said to me that that's fine that you love arts, but perhaps it would be more pragmatic also to take another professor. What was typical in those days in labor movement, that they thought that the arts doesn't give too broad bread. And so it's still my hobby. I do painting and sculpting and so on. But what's more important is that what I would tell to everybody is to be creative in such a way that it depends on you how you see the picture. And or in sculpting, that how you see it around. It's in three-dimensional, and it has helped me, I think, to see the world.
Yes, yes. One thing that Iceland has done in terms of the business world, because one of your things has been to bring the feminine values that are not just in women, but feminine values to finance and to government. But Iceland, tell me about the gender balance law. It's actual law that the ratio has to be 60-40 on government boards, business boards. How did you get that?
Well, Iceland is the leader when it comes to gender balance, but the Nordic countries are all close to being at the forefront when it comes to that. And we got to a point where even if we were the leader in terms of equality, we didn't really see it in the most influential places like the boardroom or the CEO suite. So we started addressing the boardroom and decided to do volunteer quotas on the boards because everybody agreed the data is in. It's good for business, it's good for society, it's good for the bottom line. But when things didn't, and we went far. We went from 12% women in the boardroom to 25% by a volunteer quota. But that's not exactly balanced. It's still a minority. So we introduced the gender quota law after 5 years of trying this. And I can say with some certainty that that's been well received by both women and men. And both women and men had hesitation before, but it's changed the culture in the boardroom, the dynamics of it, and the conversation. Of course, there's some backlash to it and some criticism. There always is. But I think once people experience inclusiveness, everything becomes better. And that's been the experience in Iceland.
So, Iceland is much better in this in business sector. Norwegians also quite good. So you, Americans, you are also in that sense even better than we. We have succeeded very well in public sector, in all levels of political life and so. But the business is still, let's say, then in the period of transition. And I do hope so that they will notice by a very good examples that if you have the men and women in the same body, or if you are even more or different kind of minorities, so you are more creative and then you get also the better result. It's also, of course, it's a justice to give a possibility for the individuals, but it's a typical example about the thing that what is justice for an individual can be also the success for the society, for all of us.
Your experiences, tell me more about your experiences, your personal experiences in bringing a more feminine perspective to leadership, political leadership.
So we discussed it today also, and I said that I'm older than Halla, as you can see, but so I have been trained to be a nice girl, and I have tried to be a nice girl, but sometimes they have misunderstood my behavior because to put together to be honest and outspoken and to be nice. Sometimes it goes, how could I say it, that
Sometimes they're not compatible.
yes, in somehow. And then it's better to be honest and better to try to breaking the unfair barriers. But I just said today when they asked it, I said, in the matter of fact, I haven't had too much difficulties with my job, not even when I became a first female lawyer in the unions. After very short shock, they recovered very well and they took me in very well welcoming. But the protocol sometimes, even it sounds very, very small thing, it has caused a lot of difficulties because the protocols are not thought that the president can be a woman and with a handbag or not handbag and so on. So that's why I always say to the women who want to become politicians that, so please take your sense of humor with you. You will need a lot of sense of humor. And that's my advice even today.
Yes, yeah. Well, the Queen still has a handbag, so the Queen of England.
Yeah.
So there's room for that. The honesty versus being nice is a real conflict for any politician. But Hala, you have the finest accolade. There was a New Yorker reporter who watched you, came to do an article about the Icelandic presidential election, and he had said that you were the most sincere politician, if not the most sincere human being he'd ever seen. He called you a living emoji of sincerity, and you're incredibly sincere. But did that make you blush? I mean,
Yes.
do you know how sincere you are?
No, I don't really think. I think about it as honesty probably more than sincerity. But I actually love that title and I wear it with pride. And let me tell you why. I think there was a time in my life, and I think there is a time for a lot of women leaders and maybe even a lot of male leaders, where you are afraid of tapping into what is your real wealth in terms of wisdom, which is your emotional side, your intuition, and these things. And we have sort of dismissed them from business, and we talk a lot about economic rational men, who I am pretty sure doesn't exist, and I've studied economics extensively. There might be a rational economic woman here and there, but most of us are highly emotional. And I think that's wisdom. And so I wear it with pride, and yes, I blushed, and I don't think I can hold that. I don't think I can live up to those kind of expectations, but I do think that straight talking, and just as President Hallinan said, is something that I find that we need more of. We live in a world where many of our systems are no longer serving us very well, and so we can't just be good girls or good boys. Yeah. We have to be respectful to other human beings, and we should always hold that in our head, to go high when other people go low, etc. But we should challenge and be change catalyst and challenge systems that no longer serve humanity or our future, our children, the next generations that are coming. So I try to be disobedient and encourage women also to be disobedient. And I think the women in 1975 who went on a strike in Iceland were disobedient, and they paved the way for me. So I want to pave the way for women and girls that follow me as well.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think that it's the only, perhaps the difficulty is nowadays when we can speak very directly, not only face to face, but also in internet and all these new ways of information, that we should keep it balanced. That we, like Hala said, we have to respect another person, but we have also to speak directly. And so how to combine these two things is everybody's own duty. That you cannot order it by the law. You cannot delegate it to the others, but you have always to decide by yourself that telling the truth is also respecting the others, the listeners, and the others in the discussion. But then how to go further, that's a point.
Well, you two have led by example in your countries and on the world stage, and I'm really grateful to you. So we have a lot of women viewers. If you could just give a little nice, besides don't carry a big handbag and keep your sense of humor. I've got a lot of women in the audience, and if you have a little advice to them about how to move into politics and change the world.
I think that the most important thing is that if you want to be in politics, that what is your target? What is your goal? And after that, when you know what is your goal, you can be either in city council, you can be in the NGO, you can be in business, whatever. But to see that at that moment when you do it is the most important thing. It might be the bridge to the next higher position, but don't think of that so much. Think what you are, what are the values, what are the things what you want to change. And then suddenly you notice that you are involved, you are on board to change the world, and this is important. And you can enjoy the every moment if you keep a sense of humor, if you keep your heart and your brains balanced on board. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, very good. Yeah.
Exactly. I think I would. I want to encourage women to run. And not just for public office, but to go for it. Because, and I want to encourage women to do it. I wanted to say, be you, because there's been entirely too long of a period where women have made it into the influential and powerful positions by adopting the rules of the game. I call them sometimes men in skirts, and I mean no offense, but I mean, and that's been needed, I think, to a certain extent. But now times are changing, and what we need is the authentically women and men the way they are, working from a sound set of principles that are truly theirs. Bring all of yourself to whatever role, and don't ever think that you're not enough just the way that you are, because I do think that plagues women more profoundly than men when they are making the decision to be leaders.
Profound words of wisdom from two women warriors from a fine Nordic tradition. I'm so honored to have you here. Our guests are Tarja Hallinan, former president of Finland. Thank you for joining us. And Halla Tomasdottir, candidate for president of Iceland. You're here as a guest of the Women's International Study Group, and I think that our women warriors who are out there listening would do well to go to their website. I'll put it on here. But they honor women's accomplishments, and they study and research. They give fellowships. They present symposia, which brought you here, and other events to help women expand their full potential worldwide.
Thank you very much, because we have met a lot of great American women and men. So nice to be your guest.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I hope you
Lorraine.
come back whenever you're here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm Lorraine Mills. I'd like to thank you, our audience, for being with us today on Report from Santa Fe. We'll see you next week.
Past archival programs of Report from Santa Fe are available at the website reportfromsantafe.com. If you have questions or comments, please email info@reportfromsantafe.com. Report from Santa Fe is made possible in part by grants from the members of the National Education Association of New Mexico, an organization of professionals who believe that investing in public education is an investment in our state's economic future, and by a grant from the Healy Foundation, Taos, New Mexico.